All right, we're live.
Good deal.
Okay, it just popped up on my phone. So I'm gonna go ahead and share it. We have one person joining in. Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us. Got a couple of people joining in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just gonna let a couple of people hop on. Please like and share this video on your own page so we can get some more people to view us, please. Hello. Alrighty. Gonna give a couple more seconds, let some more people log in. Please share this video with your friends and family so we could get some more viewers, and please feel free to ask questions. Hello. We have Flindell Zanders. Hello, how are you? Okay, so we have a few people on. So welcome everybody to Changing the Narrative Part 2. I'm Jessica Latin, LPCS.
And I'm Brittany Ball, LPCS as well.
And we are back with part 2 of our frequently asked questions segment, where basically we will be talking to you guys and answering your questions on frequent questions that you may have regarding mental health, relationships, parenting, and anything else that you feel we could possibly have the answer to. And if we don't have an answer, we will try to find an answer for you, or at least a resource to help you out. So just to kind of give a background for those of you who are new to this live, who didn't get to watch the part 1 episode, which I advise you all to go back and watch part 1 as well when you finish with this. But me and Brittany, we actually came up with this idea of changing the narrative. We got used to seeing so many Facebook statuses with a negative vibe, and not really having any solutions to their problems, and just kind of sitting in their depression, sitting in their anxiety, sitting in their unhealthy relationships. And we wanted to provide a platform to help you guys out there that are listening, provide you guys with some resources and some answers to your questions, and some solutions, solid solutions to your problems, and hopefully inspire you to actually continue the work in consistent individual therapy or couples therapy or family therapy, whatever it is that you're needing, whether it's with us or with somebody else. We just want to promote mental health, and there's a lot of taboo subjects out there within the realm of relationships and mental health. And so we want to break down that barrier. So the first 2 episodes are dedicated to answering your frequently asked questions. Alrighty, so let's just get into the first question. So this is a good one. I see this a lot. Is it okay to major in psychology as a way to heal and get a better understanding of your trauma and emotional issues?
Okay. So I feel like this is a good question. I haven't really heard this question a lot, so it's definitely interesting that you feel like you've heard it a little bit. I feel like when you go to school for something, it's to be educated on about how to deal with those things, and so it may not have the personal or individualized touch that you may need. So if you have your own personal traumas or emotional issues, going to school may not resolve those things. It may can start the healing process for you, but it won't fully resolve it because when you go to school for things, they hit on so many different topics and you aren't able to relate it personally or in depth as you would like to. So to answer the question fully for me, I would say it's okay, but don't rely on it to be a full resolution to the trauma and the emotional issues.
Exactly. And I see it more so people like I've had people ask me in the past, or they say in the past, because they've been to therapy, they want
Mm-hmm.
to major in
Mm-hmm.
psychology or counseling, and they want to
Yeah.
become a counselor. And I think that's really great, but also you have to recognize that being a counselor is so much more than just having gone through something difficult, because we all have gone through something difficult. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to take on a career in that, because that can also re-traumatize us if we're not careful.
Right.
But just like Brittany said, it is okay to major in psychology if you want to get a better understanding of the brain, the way, humans interact with one another. That's great for educating yourself, so that you can do the work. But ultimately, like Brittany said, you don't want to use it as a tool to heal without exactly going through the proper channels. Majoring in psychology or counseling is not the proper channel to deal with those things. After you've gone to counseling yourself and you say, you know what, that was really beneficial to me, and I think I have the skills to be able to counsel someone else, and you're actually ready for that, then, by all means, go ahead and pursue it.
Right. And I remember in school they made us participate in group therapy. I'm not sure about you, Jessica, but I remember when we took the group therapy class, we did like the educational part first, and then we actually had to participate in group therapy. And so I think that was really my first exposure with, experiencing therapy as a student in school. So I enjoyed the experience.
Right, right. And then also, we've also been told in psychology class to not diagnose yourself or your family or your friends, and that could be kind of hard. So you kind of have to be careful about that too, and just kind of keep a boundary there when you are in school, if you're in school for psychology or counseling. So.
Right.
Okay, good one. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them and we will answer them live. We already have some set questions.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to, we had a lot of questions coming in from people last time. So please give us your questions. We're happy to answer them. And please share.
For sure.
Danielle Bailey says you can't skip doing the individual work for yourself. That's really good, Danielle.
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, so let's see. Next question. What tips do you have for blending a family and dealing with stepchildren and step parents?
You want to take a go first?
Okay. Okay. So, well, I don't have any stepchildren or anything, but I do come from a blended family. The family that I grew up in as a child is a blended family. So I'm the baby of the family, and I'm the only one that has both of their parents together that are actually married. And so that has been quite the experience for my family. And my mom is watching, and she'll probably say yes. So, so I think the key, now that I've become a counselor and I've worked with various families and I've seen the dynamic of a blended family from the outside instead of the inside, And I'm sure this is something that maybe my parents would have tried to consider early on in their marriage. Is I would recommend everybody go to counseling in the beginning before there's ever issue. So I
Right.
think last time somebody asked about, do you wait until there's a problem, or do you go, kind of prematurely as just a precautionary thing? And I think for blended families, if you plan on actually getting married, or if you're just joining households or whatever,
Mhm.
definitely recommend seeking family therapy for everybody involved. And if it's possible to get the outside parents that don't live in the actual home to
Mhm.
participate as well, I think that is especially important, because when it comes to children, we need everybody to be on board, and we need everybody to be on the same page. And that's
Mhm.
where you will see a lot of behavioral problems develop in children, if you don't act, accordingly. Um,
Right.
and a lot of times children don't have a say so in different things, and
Mhm.
sometimes they may feel like this person coming in is all of a sudden just like messing up their world. They
Mhm.
may have the misconception that you're trying to take the place of
Right.
their mom or their dad. They also are used to a different set of rules. And maybe when you come in, you're more of a disciplinarian or
Mhm.
authoritarian parenting style rather than authoritative, or, because there's different types of parenting styles. So we have to get the children on board and have an understanding of, hey, this is must be rough on you, just kind of
Mhm.
validating their experiences. And I think that would be done better in counseling in a safe setting, because a lot of times
Mhm.
kids don't feel comfortable to express their opinions to parents at their home. uh,
Mhm.
and so being in a therapy setting can allow the children and the parents to be able to say what they need to say in a safe environment.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And the other thing that I kind of see based on my experience is really about communication. So what I see usually is that the children or the teenagers, they kind of get confused. So going from one house to another and the rules are different. And so I definitely think the adults and the parents need to discuss, set rules, set boundaries, and the consequences for broken rules and broken boundaries, just so it's clear. Because sometimes then they gotta, like I said, the little ones for sure, like I can do this at mommy's house, but not at daddy's house. And then I hear one parent say, well, I have to undo what they did, at the other parent's house. And so that causes for confusion and adjustment issues and transitional issues. So definitely making sure that you all are on the same page when it comes to parenting and discipline, things like that. So I definitely think family therapy does help with kind of coming to a compromise when it comes to those things.
Correct, correct. And I think you also have to make sure that your children know that they aren't being replaced by any other children that are being introduced into the home, that they still have a special connection with each individual adult. A lot of times that can get um, kind of pushed to the side, especially if there's a wedding being planned, or if you're moving to a different state, or there's going to be a lot of changes. And so you just want to make sure that child feels connected to the people that they love and care about the most. You also want to make sure that they're still involved in different activities to kind of get their mind off of any stressors that may come up, and just keep conversation open. Just I think the most important part with parenting in general is to just remain an open book and be that person that your child could come and talk to. And I know for my son, he can come talk to me about anything. But I know that everybody doesn't have that type of parent, or maybe they have somebody else that is in their ear telling them, well, that step parent doesn't like you, or, so it could be a lot of that as well. So you definitely have to monitor small children around, either teenage step siblings or siblings, or older adults in the family that may have some animosity because there's been a divorce or something like that. So you definitely want to supervise that and pay close attention to that as well.
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty. Um, let's see. What are the most common mental illnesses and what do you mostly see in your practices?
I'm not sure about the most common, just in general, but I can just kind of speak for Serenity. The majority of diagnoses that I see are major depression and generalized anxiety. And then I guess if I could include a third one, it has been adjustment disorder. So kind of when people go through different transitions, like we were talking about earlier, divorces or, trauma issues, things like that. Some people kind of go through an adjustment period and it can be accompanied with symptoms of anxiety and depression. So it's really about kind of what we assess in the beginning, but those are the three most common in my practice. Usually it's a major depression, kind of mild, sometimes moderate. Um, and like most of them have been in therapy before. And then some of my younger clients is their first time and then they've never been diagnosed with anything, or they can tell me all the symptoms, but they don't know what it's called. And so that's what the assessment period does for me. So the most common for me, major depression, generalized anxiety, and adjustment disorder.
Yeah, I'd have to say that's probably about the same for my practice.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have a special niche in my practice, which is maternal mental health. So I deal with a lot of perinatal mental illnesses in my
Mm-hmm.
practice. So aside from what Brittany said with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, and I get a lot of adjustment disorder too, because it's just kind of like you said, a transition or some sort of stressor that's not permanent. Uh,
Right.
so I give them an adjustment disorder um, diagnosis. But for a lot of my moms, my pregnant moms, or moms that are postpartum, I see a lot of moms with postpartum depression. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Postpartum anxiety, or if they are pregnant, a lot of perinatal depression and perinatal anxiety. I see a lot of moms with newborns and children under age 1 and 2 that have postpartum PTSD, that went through traumatic birth experience, or their child was in the NICU. So that's what I see primarily in my practice. Um, I think the most common mental illnesses, just from what I've read, are definitely depression. I think somebody had posted a stat yesterday and they said it was like 8.7 million people in the world have depression. And then so they said it was 1 in 3. Yeah, so 1 in 3 adults have depression.
Right.
Um, I want to say it's like 1 in 5 or something like that that actually have some sort of severe mental illness. That's on the
Right.
NAPA website. So yeah, so depression, anxiety is a big one, particularly with everything that's been going on lately with COVID-19 and this pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
also with the um, racial injustice that's going on in the world. I've been seeing an increase in anxiety,
Yeah.
increase in kind of secondary trauma, that type of thing. So,
And I think if I can kind of just jump in right here, a lot of people think that depressed people look a certain way or anxious people act a certain way, and that's definitely not the case. And so sometimes I explain to clients when they talk about educating their families about mental illness or mental illness diagnosis that even though you may have a diagnosis of major depression, it can either be a single episode, so it was caused by one single thing, or it's recurrent, so it's been going on for a little bit. Knowing that you still can very well go to work, take care of your children, go to school, do all these things, and you're not just laying in the bed, not showering. There's different levels. So I think that that's part of it too, that people think that mental illness looks a certain way, and we identify it as a invisible illness. So it's something that you really can't see, so you can't judge. So it doesn't seem like you're depressed, or it doesn't seem like you have PTSD. It's nothing you can see all the time.
Exactly, exactly. So a lot of people already have this stereotypical image in their mind from, I guess, what they've seen on television.
Mhm.
Most of the time is where we get
Yeah.
our first look at mental illness, unless we have somebody in our family. And,
Right.
sometimes it may be a traumatic experience with somebody that's in our family.
Right.
So we equate that to everybody that could have that illness, and that's not necessarily true. So it manifests itself in a variety of ways, depending on the person, the circumstances, their environment, their lifestyle, who they're around, and then their genetics as well.
Right.
So all of those factors play a part in that. So you definitely just have to be cognizant and know that you just be aware of all the potential symptoms instead of just honing in on one thing. Like
Yeah.
depression isn't just I'm just sad and crying and then I'm in the bed all day. It could be irritability and angry outbursts. Uh,
Mhm.
it could, anxiety could be avoiding things. You don't necessarily have to have panic attacks if you're anxious. I mean, there's just so
Mhm.
many. It's a variety of people that we see all the time. And I get excited, actually. It's kind of nerdy. I get excited when I encounter someone that has a diagnosis that isn't the typical, just because
Right.
you're so used to seeing it in a textbook, but you don't necessarily always get the opportunity to see certain diagnoses in person. And so
Right.
it's just a learning opportunity for me. But I've seen, depression and anxiety manifest itself in a variety of ways. So it's just
Right.
good to just educate yourself and just write down your symptoms. Um, that way you can discuss it with a professional and they could kind of determine and help you to determine what's going on with you. And Angela Henderson, she asked, has there been an influx of new clients because of the stress associated with COVID? And I guess I kind of answered that without even knowing
Mhm.
she asked the question. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we have, especially since April.
For
Um,
sure.
Definitely an influx of stress. And now with the school year starting, there's even some more stress. So I've been getting some more people calling.
Mhm.
So I guess probably through the next couple months, we'll probably get some more, some more
Yeah, for
calls,
sure.
more referrals, especially with these parents sending their kids back to school.
Right. Or them doing virtual learning. So
Exactly.
that's been funny on social media.
Mhm. Okay, and so what you said, Brittany, was really good about educating the family,
Mhm.
because a lot of times our family just doesn't get it,
Right.
or they feel like you're lying or you're just trying to get attention and
Mhm.
all of that. So that actually, I was glad you mentioned that because we actually have a question about that.
Okay.
So it says, my family minimizes and makes fun of my depression. How do I handle this?
So I think one thing is our community, sometimes we tend to poke fun or we use humor to kind of cover up what we don't know. Or we use it just to kind of like the word to minimize or dismiss something that's really serious because we don't want to face it head on. So part of it is if that continues to happen, you have to set a boundary of, I take this matter serious. I don't want you all talking to me this way, or I would not allow this. So you kind of have to set the standard of, this is a serious matter for you, and you don't want anybody to make fun of it because it is a serious issue. So I think one is going to be about setting the boundaries and not entertaining it. So you may have to choose to remove yourself, or you may not attend as many family functions if you feel like you're going to kind of be the center of the discussion or the center of, jokes because you are improving your mental health. You're choosing to address the problem and get a resolution to it. So I think part of it is people make fun of what they don't know. And so they use it to deflect from them. Whereas, they could take the opportunity and say, hey, well, tell me about it. Or what do you need from me? Or how can I support you? So I think that, as it occurs, kind of pay attention to the pattern and where you are, or who's doing it, or even if you feel like you need to pull that one person aside and say, hey, this isn't cool. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Or, like I said, choose to educate them so then they know that it's serious.
Exactly. Education is so important. And I
Mhm.
always tell people, share with your family some reading material or something of that nature, a website, something so that they can get an understanding for themselves. I don't think it's necessarily your responsibility to educate them, because if
Mhm.
something is wrong with somebody I care about, if I feel like they're going through something, I'm going to be on WebMD and everything else trying to
Yeah.
figure out trying to figure out what it is, researching it. And so I
Mhm.
feel like we have to, of course, there's a stigma with mental health. So we have to break out of that. And just like you would research if your family member told you that they had cancer, you
Mhm.
need to pay that same respect to
For
those who
sure.
are dealing with some sort of mental health issue. Um, and what you said, Brittany, about setting a clear boundary, and sometimes that includes distancing yourself from your
Mhm.
family. But I know that even that, in a sense, can cause an increase in depression,
Mhm.
because you then start to isolate yourself and feel like you don't have anybody.
Mhm.
So I would definitely recommend joining some sort of support group that
Mhm.
is geared for mental health or whatever it is you're going through. If it's domestic violence, you go to a domestic violence support group. If it's postpartum depression, you try to find a postpartum depression support group, or whatever it is that you're going through, a grief group, grief counseling group.
Mhm.
Um, because those are going to be people that get it, that totally
Mhm.
understand it, and you won't sound like, you know, just so, like I hear a lot of my clients say, I thought I was crazy. But when they came to
Mhm.
counseling and I understood them and I was like, yeah, I
Mhm.
think that plenty of times, they're just like,
For
oh,
sure, yeah.
not alone, so um, joining some sort of support group will definitely help you. I know some people are reluctant about groups.
Mhm.
But groups are really, really good. I've run a few of them just throughout my life, and even when I was in my internships in college,
Mhm.
and I found them to be beneficial even for me. And I was one of the facilitators, but it
Mhm.
was so nice to see how other people were able to support them and validate other people's feelings. And
Mhm.
I know some people worry about confidentiality, but there are certain rules when you go to a group about confidentiality, about
Right.
respecting others' opinions, about not judging others, and all of that. So, a good facilitator is going to make sure that you feel like you're in a safe space and you don't have to
Mhm.
relive what you've been going through with your family. So, I would definitely recommend that, especially if you have to set a boundary and distance yourself from your family.
Right. And I guess the other thing, just kind of the flip side of it, a lot of people on social media are using the term toxic and normalize. So just for us to kind of be clear as it relates to this topic, your family can be toxic. And so if they're constantly talking about you or making fun of you, it can always be, almost be seen as emotional abuse or verbal abuse, depending on how far they're going with the taunting and things like that. So definitely be mindful of that, that you don't want to be around people like that all the time, because they could be worse for your mental health as well, especially if they're saying, those things over and over and over again. And then you constantly have to relive those things. Or when you go home and kind of think about the Thanksgiving dinner and it didn't bring you good memories or happy times. So I think that that's something to think about. And the reason I brought up the word normalize, because we talk about breaking the stigma and normalizing speaking about mental health, but knowing what that truly means. And it's just you having a safe place to do that with your family or your friends, or of course with your therapist, or sharing your experience with other people, with not giving them all your business, but just kind of sharing, well, I see a therapist to address, sometimes I get depressed or sometimes I get anxiety, and there's nothing wrong with that. So making sure that we're using those terms correctly is one of my big things as well, because sometimes people overuse those things. But I know sometimes when we talk about toxicity, it can relate to your family. But just kind of getting away from that. And I know we use terms like, well, that's your family, or that's your mama, that's your daddy. But if that person isn't healthy for you, mom, dad, blood, sister, brother, not, I'm not going to be around a person who is detrimental to my well being.
Yeah, because you have to look at it on the flip side too. If that's your family, and they
Right.
care about you, they wouldn't make fun of your mental
Right.
illness. So it works
Yeah.
both ways. You can't just say, well, I could talk about you because you're my family.
Right.
No, it doesn't. I think we've kind of set ourselves up to create
Mhm.
that unhealthy boundary, and that's really not good. Um, so Angela Henderson has another question. She said, where do you get your referrals? And is there ever a time when you counsel an entire family?
I
So,
get
oh,
oh,
you.
I get referrals from various places. I guess my top three referral sources are Psychology Today. So that's a website where a lot of therapists kind of list who they are, where they are, their specialties, and things like that. So you may Google counselors in Bossier City. Psychology Today is one of the first websites that'll pop up. It'll ask you to enter your zip code, and then all the therapists that are registered to that zip code or the surrounding areas will pop up. So then you can kind of read about them a little bit before you call or email. Psychology Today is one. I get referrals from Facebook, so people see things like the live, or they follow the Serenity page, and so they like what I post or they like what they see. And thirdly, I would say I get referrals from one of the local hospitals, so I'm not going to call it, but I just kind of did some marketing with some of the hospitals, and they send me referrals from the psychiatric office. But it could be, I mean, it could be a lot of little different things, but those are my top three referral sources at the moment.
Okay. And yeah, same thing for me. I get a lot of my referrals from Psychology Today,
Mm-hmm.
Therapy for Black Girls,
Mm-hmm.
another really big one, directory. Um, and then, of course, I have a few contracts with different agencies in the city that I get a lot of my referrals from. So that's really helpful. That's really big to be able to do that. And Facebook, like Facebook
Yeah.
has definitely been my saving grace since I started my private practice. I get a lot of people that, and you know, both of us, we get tagged and stuff
Mm-hmm.
probably, if
Mm-hmm.
not every day, at least a few times a week in
Yeah, for sure.
different posts with people asking about, you know, a therapist or counseling services. So those are definitely the most popular. And as far as counseling an entire family, I haven't had like a session where I have like 10 people in the room, but I but I have had you know, like a parent and a child, or
Mm-hmm.
a parent and all their children, or you know, it just kind of varies. But so those are probably the biggest family sessions I have.
Yeah.
Like a big one to where you have several people in one room. I think I would need a bigger office for that, and more couches and more chairs. I don't have that much seating space.
For sure.
But yes, I have counseled families before, and I enjoy family therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see how people interact with each other. I'm really big on looking at their body language and when somebody else says something, and it could tell you a lot. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can find out that a lot of what they're going through is based on misunderstandings, or just miscommunication. And if we could just
Yeah.
look at the communication part, they usually, like, you could tell a lot of people really love each other. Like most of my families I worked with, you could tell they love each other so much, but they just don't know how to communicate it in the way
Right.
the other person will receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess as far as my experience with family therapy, I haven't done, I guess we'll be identifying full families now like that, but it's usually been teenagers with mom and or dad. And then even my adult clients, I ask them if they need to invite mom in or dad in just to kind of go over maybe some past stuff. I do, allow things like that to happen. But as far as doing like full blown family therapy, I usually don't take those cases on. I do tell people to look for, LPCs can do family therapy, but they're also a type of professionals, LMFT, the Licensed Marriage and Family Therapy. So those are the credentials that you may look for as well if you're looking for um, a family therapist. And I think I had a comment about the, oh, so to kind of rewind a little bit. We talk about getting referrals from social media. Just me kind of throwing it out there. Sometimes we get tagged in things and people are looking for an immediate response.
Mm.
So just kind of be mindful that we may be in session, or sometimes I've had people message and call late night in the hour and things like that. So knowing that your therapist has boundaries too, and so he or she may not get to you right away. And it's not like, you know, we're ignoring you or anything like that, but we do conduct business during business hours. So I just kind of like to throw that in there. That if we are tagged or if you send us a message and we don't respond right away, definitely nothing against you. We might be in session. So definitely just kind of give us some time to respond to you on those things, but definitely grateful for the social media referrals. I just like to throw that in
I think that's good. I'm glad you said that.
there. Yeah,
We have, like, y'all have to set boundaries with your family. We have to set boundaries in our profession.
for sure.
Yeah, I have an automatic message. If you send me a DM, I tell you to contact my website or, to call me, because Facebook just isn't a secure place to have a conversation about your mental health needs. And then also I have a full-time job in the daytime. So I can't always answer immediately. If there's ever an emergency, like somebody is suicidal and they need a counselor, or something is really serious going on that they need immediate assistance, then you need to call 911. You need to
Right.
go to your nearest emergency room. You need to go to the nearest psychiatric hospital, that
Right.
type of thing. Facebook is for something that is serious, but it's not immediate, and you could wait till next week for your session or something like that.
Right. So just kind of make that initial contact. And then of course we call back, email, or, whatever.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times for me, I respond a little bit quicker through email. I
Hmm.
screen a lot of my calls because I have a lot of those robocalls coming
For
through.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Antonio. He said, could you all briefly touch bases on the differences between the various mental health professions?
Okay. So in general, we have licensed therapists and then you have unlicensed staff. So I guess if I can start there, I guess as far as you have a licensed person, so that means you may have a LCSW. I try not to use the acronyms because not everybody knows what it means. A LCSW is a licensed clinical social worker. You have your LPCs, your licensed professional counselors, your LMFTs, so your licensed marriage family therapist. Am I missing a L? No.
It's did you do the LMSW and
LMSW, yeah. So
LCSW?
yeah, so anybody that has an L, they more than likely have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in something. And then they go for continued training, so they may take a national exam, and then they get licensed by the state that they reside in. So you have your licensed professional. So usually, I guess for the LPCs, I can speak for us. We did the bachelor's degree, we got a master's degree. Then we were required to do 3,000 hours in the field, take a national counselor's exam, and then apply with the state. So we go through, I guess that's at least 6 years of schooling,
Yes.
then 2 years after to get the the license. So we do go through those things. So it's different credentials for the different license that people hold. You have agencies in the area, they hire non-licensed staff. So those people usually have a bachelor's or a master's in one of those fields, like psychology or counseling, sometimes education. I've seen. Just really depends on their experience with mental health. Then they, go out and provide services to clients. So it really depends on what you're looking for, of who would kind of supply those needs for you.
Yeah, and then also there's, of course, psychiatrists who
Right.
prescribes medication. They went to medical school. They are a doctor. They had to go through all the rounds. They worked all the different areas, and then they focused on psychiatry. Um,
Right.
and then there's a psychologist that mostly you'll see them doing research or teaching on a collegiate level, something like that. They too can prescribe under, I guess they have to have certain credential for that or whatever. But so there's a variety of us, and I think that's why it gets so confusing for a lot of people. I've had
Mhm.
so many people call me doctor, and I'm like, I'm not a doctor. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
but I try to make myself clear with people, and a lot of people don't make themselves clear. So definitely to my people that are listening, you have to, ask questions and check the credentials of who's working with you or who's working with your child. A lot of people, they say counselor, but they're not a LPCS or LPC, or they're not even a PLPC, but that's just a term, kind of like how you would call a camp counselor. It's a
Mm-hmm.
camp counselor, it's a mentor. So I think there's a lot of confusion about their even pastoral counseling. A lot,
Mm-hmm.
there's been some people that have tried to come off as they are able to counsel you with your trauma, but they've only received 1 year of schooling um, in pastoral college, and that's not the same.
Right.
As being able, like going through all of the years in training and testing that we've had to go through, and all of the practice that all those hours that we've had to obtain
Mm-hmm.
in order to get our licensure. So you just want to make sure that the person that you're going to and who you're paying your money, whether you're paying out of pocket or insurance, but especially if you're paying out of pocket, okay, you need to really check your resources. There is actually a billboard going towards downtown Shreveport. You'll see it right there on your right hand side. It's a big billboard, and it'll ask you, is your therapist licensed? And that is from our board, the LPC board, here in Louisiana. And so if you ever have a question about if somebody you're seeing is licensed, you can always go to the LPC board website and you can type in their name, and
Mm-hmm.
their name should pop up, and you can see if they like what their specific credential is. So, and then every entity should have a board of some sort. So there's the social work board, there's the psychiatry board. I mean, there's all kinds of boards. So whoever you're seeing, you have a right as a client. Those are your part of your mental health rights, to
Mm-hmm.
know what exactly the credentialing process and like what school they went to. If anybody's being real shady and suspicious and and they don't want to reveal what school they went to, or you don't see their degrees and all of that, then you might want to try to find somebody else. So, but that's a good. Thank you, Antonio, because that's something that we've just had a tough time with.
For sure. So much to discuss there, but we'll just leave it there.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. So I have another question. Do either of you counsel staff for companies who've had something traumatic happen or the loss of a coworker?
No, I haven't.
I have not. But usually your company, unless it's like a nonprofit maybe, but
Mhm.
most companies will have an EAP service that they are contracted with. And so
Mhm.
they will provide a counselor that will come out to your job and counsel you and your coworkers if you have had a loss or a traumatic experience. I know my supervisor, when I was getting my license, he was credentialed with an EAP service for, and he would go to a lot of the banks that had been robbed uh,
Mhm.
in northern Louisiana. So he would do that, and he would provide crisis counseling for bank tellers who had been in a bank robbery situation. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, there's such a variety of things that you can do in this profession, but haven't had that opportunity yet. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but that just, that's just something I haven't. I'm not really with a lot of EAPs. I'm only with like one or two, and so. But yes, that is something that you would want to check with your human resources person about, any EAP services that your agency or your company may have. And if you don't have it for your company, that's for those business owners out there, that may be something you might want to look into.
Mhm.
And even if you don't necessarily want to go with an EAP company, you can even contract with a regular, private practice or something like that. One of us, I have contracts with different agencies for different stuff as well. So.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago, I went to a training. I think it was with Bossier Parish Sheriff's Department. But they have like crisis teams here in the area, and they kind of disperse throughout the state. So if a crisis happens, like we have the flood sometimes, or hurricane season, things like that, and so they send crisis teams to do, of course, like cleanup and donations and food, but it's also mental health professionals a part of things like that. So it may be through something like the Red Cross, but I think you can call 211 and just ask for kind of crisis intervention therapist, and it'll lead you to that group. I can't call their name right now, but there is a service here. It's Louisiana based, so they travel all over the state to provide crisis counseling, and like it's grief therapy. Because they're kind of doing it out in the field. So if we have, like I said, a natural disaster, or like you said, a bank robbery somewhere, or an explosion, they actually go to the sites and do therapy there, somewhere like in a conference room or something like that, for maybe first responders and things like that. So that's definitely something. There's a resource that we have. Like I said, I just can't call the company's name right
Yeah. Okay.
now.
Alrighty, so somebody had posted something just like a few minutes ago, and they were touching on something we said previously about Facebook, and they were saying everything doesn't need to be shared to Facebook. And
Right.
that brings me to this question. How do I respond to someone who posts they are suicidal on social media? That's a good one.
For sure. Anytime I do like small talks or anything like that, I share with the people the suicide hotline number, and I tell them to save it in their phone. So I always have it on hand. I tell other people to have it on hand, just because it's a 24/7 resource. There's also a text line, so some people aren't comfortable calling, but they're okay texting. And so when you ask how to respond, I would say respond in that way. You're giving them a resource, but also they may just be wanting someone to listen to them, so they may not be asking you to say or do anything. But definitely address it. Don't ignore it. Usually, when I see it when I'm scrolling, I try to monitor who I accept as friends. But definitely, if I see something concerning, if it's on the timeline itself, I go to the inbox, just because I don't, want it all on the person's page and things like that. And I do offer, if they need to quickly call and talk or set in. Sometimes I offer a free session for that person if I see something like that, just to kind of see what's going on. But I definitely wouldn't just scroll by it. So don't ignore it. So I think that would be helpful if you kind of save, like I said, the suicide prevention hotline number. I have it saved on like memes and stuff like that. So I'm able to post that within a few, seconds if I see it on social media. So that's usually how I address it. And I just think that it's good for everybody just to kind of have it on hand, because sometimes we don't know what to do, or we don't know if it's for attention or whatever. But anytime that I see it, I take it seriously. I don't, and my friends and family know this, I don't play about stuff like that. So I take every post I see like that seriously.
Yeah, definitely. I think we see I've seen a few of those types of, even it's been shared or something.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been actually like a direct friend to these people. It's always been something that's been screenshotted and shared, screenshotted and shared.
Right, right.
It's like, y'all need to actually get the person some help instead of screenshotting it. So that's one of the things that kind of alarms me the most, is that we see
Mm-hmm.
people calling out for help, and it may
Mm-hmm.
not be as blatant as I'm going to kill myself, but it could just be little small things. When you um hear on the news that somebody killed themselves or killed their children, if you go back and look at the last few days prior to them doing that, I see clearly some
Mm-hmm.
things that were said that everybody just kind of brushed off, or maybe they just got one or two likes, or
Mhm.
See a whole bunch of people saying praying for you, or just pray about it, or you got this, or we try to say encouraging words, and there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that, but
Right.
um prayer is not necessarily, I mean, they need prayer, fine, but also they need like something tangible, because
For sure, yeah.
like that's not going to do anything like right then, so I think it's just so important for us to stop sharing and screenshotting these people
Mhm.
going through their struggles, and really try to, like you said, inbox them privately. You don't have to be seen doing a good deed. Just do it if it's on your heart. Or and a lot of times, I feel like the reason why a lot of people don't address it in the right way is because it scares them.
Mhm.
So it scares them because it's like maybe it's triggering for them, because maybe they've been there before, or they know somebody that's been through that, and
Right.
um, they don't want to touch it, or they feel like something's gonna fall back on them.
Right.
Um, if you're worried about that, then take the stress off of you, and at least send them the link to this mental health website, or send them a phone number to a counselor that or something. Even if that's all you say, you don't have to go into this long detailed conversation with the person. All you have to do is give them that number, and we have the number scrolling at the bottom. So if you or anyone has thoughts of hurting themselves or hurting someone else, call this number and they will get you help instantly. And that way you won't have to necessarily have all that pressure on you.
Right.
That's a good question.
For sure.
Alrighty. So let's see what time it is. So we have about 10 minutes. So we could squeeze in about two
Mhm.
more questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have some comments. Okay. Thank you for great information. Thank you for posting that number. You're welcome, you guys. We're here to provide you guys with resources.
For
Um,
sure.
okay. So somebody said, if I go to therapy, is the counselor going to preach to me about what I have done wrong?
Simply stated, no. We're here to kind of just receive that information. So you're going to tell us information about you, or maybe different experiences that you had. And so we're not, I always tell my clients in the consultation that I'm not here to preach to you or give advice, but I'm here to kind of offer just some feedback. And that's, why are you here? You want to make different decisions. So I'm not a preacher, so I'm not going to, point out everything that you've done wrong. I do tell my clients that I may challenge them on some things. So if it's something we've been working on, they're kind of continually going in a negative pattern of behavior, I may point it out and say, hey, do you think that's healthy or that's the best? Just for them to kind of think about it. But no, we're not drill sergeants or anything like that. So to answer that question, I would simply say no.
Yeah. And in school, when we were in college, we were told in class to never bring up any type of spiritual context unless the client brings it up. So
Right.
if you're a Christian and you talk to me about your beliefs, and or that you prayed, or if you even ask me to pray with you, I will do that if you ask me, but I'm never
Mhm.
going to push my beliefs on someone else,
Right.
my form of spirituality on someone else, because that's not what you came to me for. You came to me
Right.
for non-judgmental care,
Right. Yeah.
and so I'm very careful about that. Now I have had clients bring up spiritual things, and we go and we talk about it, and it's a really great session, and I appreciate those moments. But also I know that that's a big fear for a lot of people, because maybe they've already been shunned by their church family, or by their own family and their own religious views in their family. So therapy is definitely not a place where you will have the Bible shoved down your throat or anything like that. It really has nothing to do with that at all, unless you personally bring it up as the client. And if your counselor does that and they're not a Christian counselor, like if you didn't go to like an actual agency that specializes in Christian counseling, then a general LPC is not even going to bring up that. Now, we
Right.
said spirituality, and I actually made a post about this the other day. Spirituality is important in
Sure.
your overall wellness. So, regardless of whether you believe in Jesus, in God, Allah, Jesus, whoever, Buddha, um, having some sense of a higher power, regardless of what that higher power is, even if it's the universe, even if
Right.
it's Scientology, whatever it is, whatever you believe in, is so important in your overall wellness. And so I do encourage you to find something to believe in, because that usually gives you motivation. It gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you a, like, especially if you are feeling suicidal, it gives you something to look forward to, and to have like a support system of other people around you that believe the same thing. So spirituality is not a bad thing, and I will incorporate that if that's a part of somebody's. If they regularly go to church, I say, well, if church makes you feel happier, but you stop going to church and then you notice that you started becoming depressed, well, hey, how about
Right.
we come up with a plan to get you going back to church more, or praying more, or journaling, or whatever your spiritual activities will be. Okay. We have a question from Aisha Parker Coleman. How can you convince someone to go to counseling when they know they need help but still refuses to go?
Okay. So part of it is you always hear me say that counseling has to be a individualized choice or a voluntary choice. I know some people are court ordered, or they go because their wife told them to go or their husband told them to go. But at the end of the day, if they're not going for themselves, it's not going to work. So part of it is you can beg and plead and do all the things, but if they don't want to change or if they don't want to go, there's no way you can convince them. So part of it, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you know, you're trying to convince someone to go and they know they need to go, but they won't go. So definitely exploring what's the resistance to therapy. So that may also be an educational thing of what's the refusal about. So are they fearful that they're going to be judged, or um, that they're going to, be misdiagnosed or something like that? Just try to understand where the refusal is coming from. And then maybe just have them, like we talked about last time, a lot of counselors offer consultations and things like that. So offer to support them through some consultations and things like that so that they can make a good decision to go. So part of it is really exploring or identifying what is the resistance, especially if they feel like they need to go, but they're still resisting for whatever reason.
Exactly. I totally agree. You usually I might have people call me or send me a request to begin therapy for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to turn around and tell them, okay, you can give them my number, you can give them my email, and
Right.
have them contact me directly,
Right.
because we could want it all day for the people that we love, but if they
Mm-hmm.
don't have that motivation and that desire to change, then you're just going to be wasting your money. You're going to be wasting
Right.
your time. You're going to be wasting my time. So uh, therapy is not something like it's just, you have to want to do it. You have to want to do the work. You have to recognize that you have a problem and you're ready to change. So there are different levels to change. And if you ever get a chance, Aisha, go look up the stages of change and show that person, what stage of change do you think you're in, and see what could we possibly do to get them up to the next level of change in order for them to go to therapy. So you may want to start there, but we can't make nobody go to counseling, even,
Right.
especially not an adult. Even a teenager, I want to say in Louisiana, I think it's 16, you have the ability to um, deny or refuse care, regardless of what your parents say. So I know that's a problem for a lot of parents, but
Yeah.
and even I mean, let's say that it's a child. I can't make anybody talk to me. Yeah.
Right.
And I've had that experience where I've had kids literally sit in the chair and not say anything to me for the
Mhm.
entire hour. I can't make them participate. And so
Right.
you want it to be an enjoyable experience. So you don't want to force anybody to be somewhere where they don't want to be. And
Right.
a lot of people use counseling as an ultimatum for a relationship.
Mhm.
I wouldn't advise that because
Right.
if they don't have the desire to want to go change on their own, then you making them go to therapy, it might could work, but 9 times out of 10, you having to tell them if you don't go here, then I'm leaving you. Like that's a sign right there that they're not really all the way invested in the relationship. So
Gotcha.
hope that answers your question, Aisha. Thank you for that because I think that's a good one. We hear that a lot. So we have time for one more question, and so this is from Arlene Hill. This is from my mom. what what techniques do you use to make first time clients feel comfortable?
I guess from my end, so kind of like I discussed when I talked about the initial consultation, I don't do a full blown session the first time I meet them because it's really about who you feel comfortable with. So you want to build rapport and trust with a person you're probably about to share a lot of things with. So of course, if they come into the office, speak hello, saying hi, allowing them to choose where they want to sit because it's about them feeling comfortable, things like that. And so I initially just kind of tell them about myself so I can kind of use, since our area is a little bit small, I do identify that Bossier's home, where I went to high school, where I went to college. And so sometimes a lot of clients be like, oh yeah, well I went there, or my sister went to Northwestern or Tech or whatever. And so they're looking kind of for some commonalities or similarities so they can relate to a little bit. So I do share as much information, not a lot of personal information, but just briefly about just kind of hometown, education background, my experience. Um, I feel like a lot of times they've already looked me up, and we talked about this before, so they already kind of know the gist of what I look like and things like that. And that's usually why they make the call, because they want somebody that looks like them or somebody that's relatable. So I try to use those talking points, and then I ask them to kind of tell me a little bit about you. And it's kind of giving them a space so we're not jumping right into the need for therapy, just to see if we can even have a simple conversation about those things. So that's usually the first thing that I do. And so then kind of maybe 10, 15 minutes we're in that. And then we do, what made you reach out or what made you call? And so then they can kind of put in their own words what they're looking for during that time. And so, like I said, I don't, force anything in the beginning. I let them go home and think about it, call me back, or they, oh, I want to go ahead and schedule a session. We go ahead and do that. But for me, it's really about the comfort level and can I trust this person and are they relatable?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that you said is a lot of what I do as well. I just kind of try to make it feel like, I'm just like your friendly person at the grocery store. Hey, how you doing? I always make sure I have a smile on my face. Before COVID, I would shake their hand. I
Yeah.
don't know what I might do now, but I try to make people feel excited to be there and that I'm happy to see them. And then, of course, we go over paperwork and stuff like that. But I also
Mhm.
ask them, do you have any questions from what you
Right.
did? Because I wanted to be totally transparent when it comes to things,
Right.
or if they've had any concerns. I always ask them, how their day was. Even that,
Right.
kind of shows them that I do have some interest in how they're doing right
Yeah.
now and not just, okay, let's just get to
Right.
why you're here. So I think it's very important to just kind of ease people in, especially people that have never been to therapy before. Now,
Right.
I have had some that they're just ready to go and they just come in the room just ready to just
Yeah.
let it all out, and that's fine too. But for those people that they've never been, it's their first time, I maybe talk to them, like, are you having any, if they tell me, oh, I'm really nervous, I say, well, tell me why are you nervous? Or what can I do to help you to feel better? I tell them if you need to take a break or if you need to go to the restroom, you're more than welcome. I try to tell them that there's no real formalities. They don't have to call me by my, Mrs. Latin. They don't have to do all that. They can just say, Jessica, to be as comfortable with me as possible. And I also try to match their body language in a sense, so they don't feel like I'm trying to overexert myself or, make myself appear to be, bigger than them or better than them. So, yeah. That's a good question. Well, all right. Well, it is 8:05 and we still didn't even get through all of the questions, y'all. But I will let you guys know that we have some exciting things coming up. We are actually going to invite 2 new therapists onto our show next time. And so we're really, really excited about that. The next episode is going to be September 15th at 7 p.m. And this is going to be about relationships. So y'all get ready. There's been a lot of talk about relationships over the summer, the good, the bad, the ugly. So we're actually going to invite Antonio Thrower and Hasim Jones on here. We're going to have 2 single people, 2 married people giving you their perspectives from a professional standpoint about relationships. So if you do have any questions, please submit your questions so we can answer them live. And if you guys want to contact us in the future, whether it's about the show, whether it's about contracts, because we always looking for contracts and how to make more money and how to serve our people as well. That's the main reason why we do this. But any type of nonprofit events or anything like that, we're so happy to participate or come speak to kids or churches and organizations. We're so happy to speak and inform the community. So any collaborations that you guys want to have, please contact us. You can contact me at the information that's scrolling below. My website is jlcounselingllc.com, and I try to make that as thorough as possible so you get all the information you need in one look. So, and then you can contact Brittany at bball@serenitycounselingllc.org, and those are her social media handles. And we just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys so much. And please share this video, and we hope to see you guys again on September 15th.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye. Good night.